coronavirus is disrupting the economy. That is no surprise to anyone really at this point. It's wreaking havoc on the transportation sector. So airlines have severely scaled back the number of flights that they're offering right now. Transit systems are limiting their capacity just in terms of the fact that there's not enough demand there from riders. So to talk more about this, I want to bring in John Samuelsen, a Transportation Workers Union International President. And John, thanks so much for taking the time to join us this afternoon. I know you represent just around 150,000 members, and it's across a number of industries. You have the airline, railroad, transit, utilities, and services sector. But John, from your standpoint, just in terms of what we've seen from the federal government and the state and local levels so far, do you think enough is being done to stabilize your industry and to keep workers employed?
Well, I think certainly the federal bailout has had a hugely positive impact on every transport sector, just about every transport sector. The MTA in New York is getting a $4 billion bailout, sorely needed. The airline industry's massive multi-billion dollar bailout. Amtrak's getting a good chunk of change. So we're not really seeing a massive impact in those industries yet on the finance side, but we do expect some of that to come, particularly after September.
Yeah, John, I wanted to ask you just in terms of what we've seen, what was included in that stimulus package, how long will that be able to carry some of these companies through? You mentioned the MTA, Amtrak, also the airlines. If they do run out of money, what does that mean for your workers here?
Well, I think if the airline industry does not bounce back, we're going to have significant problems. It is our hope and our belief that the airline industry will bounce back before the end of September. And if it doesn't bounce back, there'll have to be a secondary follow-up stimulus package to address it. So we fought to have those protections for workers in place beyond September. The airline industry fought against it. They fought against any protections. September became a compromise spot, and it gives several months for the airline industry to recover. And hopefully that's what happens. And on the public transit side, $4 billion into the New York City subway system, a lot of money into other big city subway and bus systems that we represent. It's sorely needed. As you mentioned, the ridership has plummeted. In most systems in the United States rely heavily on the fare box for the day-to-day operation of the system, and we've taken a great hit there. But that's on the financial side. I think on the safety side, things are a little more precarious. And
yeah, John, I wanted to ask you about the safety side, just in terms of the measures that are being taken to protect your workers, how your workers are feeling, the ones who still have to go to work every day in this type of environment. Is enough being done, do you think, at this point to protect, just from a safety side, from protecting the workers?
Certainly more could be done. Unlike, it's impossible to have a national response in public transit. Public transit systems and all transit systems they're run by municipalities. There's no cohesive national plan to get by. So we're bargaining these things out. We're bargaining mitigation out city by city. So what works in Philadelphia, Miami may not work in New York and Houston, that type of thing. But in New York, we're being hit particularly hard. I don't know if you saw the news this morning, but it's 5 fatalities now of New York City transit workers from COVID-19. And certainly measures, in my opinion, could have been taken earlier on to mitigate against those fatalities. The union found itself in a fight with the MTA regarding masks. 2 weeks ago, there was a fight, believe it or not, regarding whether even masks were a good idea, a fight which we won. And just over the last couple of days, masks are now being given out to frontline New York City transit workers to limit the exposure that they have, but more needs to be done. We need more masks. As somebody mentioned earlier on the program, the masks have to be changed out periodically. We need gloves, we need disinfectant, and that's in every public transit city. I mean, but we have done some things to mitigate against density in the system. At any given moment right now, half the workforce is home, not only in New York, but in Philadelphia and Houston. We've done similar things. So there are reduced schedules because ridership is down, but that's a double-edged sword, because reduced capacity in the system means more density, train car by train car and bus by bus. So if they were running a normal schedule, the amount of social distancing that could be accomplished would be far greater than with a reduced schedule. And on the bus side of the house, we've blocked off the bus operator from the riding public. So there's backdoor boarding, rear door boarding in New York City and some other cities now to limit the amount of exposure our bus operators have. But more needs to be done, but we're doing everything that we can think of right now to mitigate against exposure.
Johnny, you mentioned the severe drop in ridership just in terms of the demand that's out there for this various transportation that's out there right now. Do you eventually, if it does drop by any more, do you eventually start shutting down or severely restricting some of the transportation that's available just with your worker safety in mind, and then also just purely the lack of demand that's out there right now?
I think there's a balance. Worker safety has to be balanced against our absolute obligation that we enthusiastically embrace to carry emergency service workers and healthcare professionals to the front lines of fighting this disease, to healthcare facilities and hospitals and whatnot. But everything is a balance. With the proper protective equipment, transit workers can ferry healthcare professionals to where they have to be to fight this disease, to fight this pandemic. Without proper protection, the government is essentially using us as kind of cannon fodder against coronavirus, and we're not going to let that happen. So as long as we're given the proper protection equipment, we will continue to operate the systems, city by city.
John Samuelsen, Transportation Workers Union International President, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.